Hey, Deshaun, when you said you wanted the Cowboys to draft you, it looked like you were dissing the Browns. Talk about that, and what would your reaction be if the Browns drafted you?
First off, my reaction would be all excited. I'd really be excited to go up there and play for those guys and Hugh Jackson. But it wasn't a diss or anything like that. If you know the whole story, it was a joke that me and Jason Garrett had last year because I won the Davey O'Brien the year before too. And Davey O'Brien are huge Cowboy fans, and they wanted me to joke around and have the crowd excited and a good laugh. So the base behind the story was, at the time, the Cowboys was looking for a quarterback, and so Tony Romo was hurt, and I told him, hey, if I was able to come back to Davey O'Brien Award next year, I promise you that I'd be back, and if I do, then you have to draft me. And that was the joke. We laughed, had a good time. And so what the Davey O'Brien people wanted me to do is bring that back up and say, hey, I kept my promise. Now you got to keep yours to drafting me. And it was just a insider joke, and then someone filmed it and put it on social media and made it bigger than what it was. So it wasn't no diss to any team or any franchise. I'd be happy to go anywhere, and I'm just blessed with this opportunity.
Have you talked with the Bills, and if so, or a team in the North, is weather an issue for you at all?
Not at all. Football is football. I'm adapted to any weather. I just want to go out there and play football and be able to perform at a high level and win games.
How would you talk to them at all, Buffalo Bills?
I actually meet with those guys tonight.
How would you feel about going to a place where you had to sit for a year behind a already quarterback in place?
I wouldn't mind that. Any situation, I'll respond to it. It'll be awesome to learn from a veteran guy that's been there before, and I can just watch how he works, and I won't have to be pushed in that pressure or that moment. Right away, I can sit there and learn, build my game, learn the offense, and make myself a better player. So, that's if it happens, it happens. But it won't be a factor for me. I actually met with the Chiefs Tuesday night. So, it's been great. I'm a huge Andy Reid fan, and what he's been able to do with all the quarterbacks he's done of his coaching career, and what he's doing with Alex Smith is just awesome. I had the ability to watch the film on Alex Smith and the Kansas City Chiefs, and the way he operates that offense and leads that team, and he's just very, very smooth at what he do. Is it comes a long way.
Deshaun, the ACC is considered by some to be the best conference in the country. How much did it help playing in this conference? How much does it help preparing you for the future in the NFL?
It's great. The ACC is very, very talented. Have a lot of professional guys that's been there, that's in the NFL right now. Then a lot of guys that's been able to have the opportunity to play this year. So the ACC prepared me for a lot of big games, a lot of big moments, a lot of spotlight, a lot of shine, a lot of cameras. So it won't be no surprise whenever I get to the next level because I was able to do it at the collegiate level.
Hey, Deshaun, a few weeks ago, the Dallas Sweeney compared you to Michael Jordan. How do you take that?
I just laughed at it. I thank him for the compliment. It's pretty cool. But I'm no Michael Jordan. I'm Deshaun Watson, and my goal is for one day to be able to have people talk to me or talk about me like they do Michael Jordan. So that's the goal one day. But he was just just saying that's how he felt. I know where he's coming from, but it wasn't really a real comparison. Hey, this is Michael Jordan. So.
You said that you saw some tape on the Chiefs' offense. Was that part of your interview with the Chiefs?
It was not. It was just off season. I'm actually working with Jordan Palmer, so we watched film, on the Kansas City Chiefs, the Steelers, Patriots, Falcons, Packers, Cowboys, the different teams that were playoff teams that were still playing. Had the ability to watch film on those guys and see how they run and be a professional.
What's the toughest interview question you've gotten so far?
The toughest interview question. I met with one team. They kind of, taught me a simple playbook. 6 formations. Taught me a concept with 2 run plays and a pass play. If I see this certain defense, and then they taught me 5 true offensive plays, and this is what you do in the reads, and then he had me go read back or turn the page, and he had me teach the whole thing. And I thought I did pretty well. He was very impressed, and hopefully that goes a long way.
Have you met with the Browns yet?
Sorry?
Have you met with the Browns?
I meet with the Browns tonight.
Would that be this year that you guys know if you guys can come in and play immediately, you don't necessarily have
down 1 or 2 or 3?
I think so. I'm going to prepare myself to, be ready for every moment. So if I have to play early or right away, then I'm going to be prepared for that moment and come in and produce and, help the team out to win. But if I have to sit, then, I just wait my turn, be patient, and continue to grind and work at it.
Deshaun, what's
I've always been a Dak fan. Had the ability to meet, Dak a couple years ago, and just being able to watch him and his success and where he's coming from, and just be able to have, how he's been able to translate to the professional league and be so calm and poised and lead a great franchise like the Cowboys and have be a playoff contender team and just have all the success. So just being able to watch him do what he do is very humbling and builds confidence for all the younger guys too.
Deshaun, what do you believe separates you from the rest of the top quarterbacks in this class?
All the guys are great. All the guys are very competitive. All the guys have success. They're going to have a successful career in the NFL. Everyone works hard. Everyone is motivated to be the guy in that franchise. But I just say my past history. Starting back in high school and the way I was raised, coming from the projects home and being able to get out that and handling being the face of college football for 2 years, handling the success, handling all the criticism and the adversity, and then being 48-8 in the high school and winning the state championship, and then going to the collegiate level and being 33-3. So one thing that translates from college to the NFL is winners, and I think being a quarterback, that's the biggest thing that being recognized is winning games, and that's all I've been doing.
You think that resume means you deserve to be the #1 pick?
I guess so, but it depends on what the team needs, and sometimes the team don't need a quarterback, sometimes they do, sometimes they want to go a different direction, or sometimes they feel like this guy's better, in their system than another guy. So it all just kind of happens on what the team wants. I'm not, that's not really the goal to be the #1 pick. I just want to be drafted, hear my name called, and have the opportunity to go play.
What do you feel like is the biggest question teams have about you that you need to answer in this draft process?
The biggest question I've heard from just different coaches was if I could change the protection, run an offense, and recognize defensive coverages. And every team I went to asked me those questions. I handled it well, answered the questions. They were very impressed, and they know that I'm not just another quarterback that's running a spread offense, that a guy that can operate and make good decisions and recognize what the defense is doing and be successful doing it.
Do you think it's fair that people criticize the number of interceptions, not knowing necessarily what the system called for, the scheme or style?
Not at all. I understand that was going to come, and it happens. It's something that they obviously going to poke holes. If I was in their shoes, I'd poke holes too. But I take full responsibility and all that. Sometimes you just have bad luck. Sometimes the defense make a good play. Sometimes I make a bad throw. 1 or 2 or 3 maybe is a bad decision. But it's a learning lesson. I've learned from those mistakes, and I corrected those, and I'm gonna move on forward.
Deshaun, can you talk about your relationship and what Mike Williams meant to you as a receiver in college?
Mike is our relationship is very, very tough. It's very strong, and we're very close, especially building over this past year. Connecting with each other, always hanging out. We've been hanging out here at the process, and just being able to have him as a weapon is, it's a big factor. And so he's a guy that you can throw it up in that range, and he's gonna come down with it. So he's gonna be a great professional, and I'm excited to see what he can do at this level.
Deshaun,
what's your relationship like with Deshaun Kaiser? You mentioned you guys, or he helped you a little bit before the national team.
Our relationship is very close too. I met Deshaun back in high school, and we grew up together pretty much from my junior year in high school to now, and just being able to communicate it and just help each other out. If we're playing a team that I've already played and he's already played, we'll share notes and talk about it. And if we're just going in, for instance, we're going to the national championship, he's giving me advice. So, this is what he saw in the previous game, and this is what I can do better, and just giving me some tips and pointers, and it goes a long way. So, just being able to have that relationship and communication, it helps both of each other.
Deshaun, you took some big hits in the championship game. Did it take you longer to recover from that? Like, if you had a game the next week, would it have been okay to play?
It took me a while. I'm not gonna lie, it took me a while. That was one of the reasons why I didn't participate in the Senior Bowl. But at the same time, if we had another game, I will, tough it out and play. And it wasn't anything that I couldn't play on. It was just, I had to, get back healthy and get back.
Was that abnormal for your season? To get beat up like that?
I mean, it happens, especially if you want to play for a national championship and run the system that we, run for. You're going to take hits, you're going to take, some blows, and especially with teams like Ohio State and Alabama, they're going to come at you and they're going to, apply the pressure and try to hit you and rally you.
What was the interaction like with Hugh Jackson when you talked to him before the Senior Bowl? And do you think that was definitely the right decision looking back?
It was great. We had a great conversation. And we talked about, the national championship in the season and my participation in the Senior Bowl. And, just the previous history, just getting together, interviewing me and talking through this process that we're going through right now. But, that the decision was, based on me, my family, my agent, and my trainer, and all the coaching staff at Clemson. And we came to a conclusion that it was best for me just to, sit out and get healthy and catch up on the process of, this whole draft process and get ready for the combine. So, he understood that. He knew where I was coming from, and it wasn't no hard feelings, and we all were on the same page.
How about your relationship with Sammy Watkins, and have you discussed maybe you guys playing together in the NFL?
We haven't discussed, but I do have a relationship with him, and he's a guy that, especially with going through the recruiting process, I was able to talk to about how Clemson was and how the program was, and how to be successful at that level. So maybe one day we can get together and talk about it, and who knows, we might be teammates. So.
How familiar are you with Hugh
slower
Jackson?
start last fall, how did you step back and rediscover your groove again?
The slow start started because we were it just started off not completing balls that we usually complete, dropping balls, not being on the same page, things like that. And once we fixed that and started communicating and catching balls and making throws and getting on the same page and creating a run game, that's when everything kind of started flowing. So that goes for any offense, regardless if you have a lot of hype going into the season, or if you don't have the same communication and not on the same page, then every offense is going to be slow.
Deshaun, you talked to.
Some analysts or critics criticize this draft class, talking about quarterbacks just not being a lead or not being that lead prospect.
That's their opinion. If you ask all the guys that are, other quarterbacks that's in this draft class, they'll probably say the same thing. It's just going to make the documentary and the story in 5-10 years even better whenever they start talking good about it. So. It's a motivational tip, it's a humbling tip, and they can say what they want to say, but that's just opinions, it's not facts, because we haven't stepped foot on the NFL field yet, so they don't know what's going to happen.
You talked about your winning resume, but the NFL team that drafts you is probably not going to be a winning team. A team with a poor record. How do you think you'll handle that responsibility and pressure to kind of lift the franchise?
Just come in and just create an environment, a winning environment, and just get everyone on the same page. And just got to be patient with it and take time. Winning at the NFL level is not easy. It's tough, and each and every week is, it's a tough week. You got to be able to, be on the same page with the guys and pull it out. So, just being able to have that experience of winning, maybe it can spread throughout the team and the franchise, and kind of spread throughout the players and. Turn the franchise around.